Tonight, the head of the Democratic National Committee, the head of the Republican National Committee, and a vice presidential hopeful, all here on the Hill. What both President Biden and Donald Trump are likely to tout tonight, and what will likely put them on the defense. You are about to hear from some of the biggest names in politics on the biggest night in politics so far this election year, and you won't see it anywhere else. I'm Blake Berman. Come on in for this special debate edition of The Hill on NewsNation. And you are looking live right now at the biggest prize of them all, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, as the road to the White House runs through Atlanta, Georgia this evening. Tonight, the 45th and 46th presidents of the United States try to punch their ticket back to the White House and potentially put a bow on this presidential election. What is so unique about tonight is a debate in June, the earliest of its kind by 89 days. Both President Biden and former President Donald Trump have presidential records to run on, as they are part of the most exclusive club in this country, living presidents. And make no mistake about it, they despise each other.
Should I be tough and nasty and just say you're the worst president in history? Or should I be nice and calm and let him speak?
Here on the Hill, throughout this hour, you will hear from Jamie Harrison, the head of the Democratic National Committee, Michael Whatley, the head of the Republican National Committee, and Dr. Ben Carson, who is a possible Trump vice presidential running mate. That throughout the hour here on the Hill. Joining me throughout, Scott Bolden, former D.C. Democratic Party chairman, NewsNation contributor, Ashley Davis, former George W. Bush White House official, Kurt Bardella is a Democratic strategist, NewsNation contributor as well, and Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. I think it's fair to say the biggest night in politics, right? So far this year?
So far, yeah.
Easily, yeah. It's going to get more consequential from here on out. Let's start with you, Mick. You spent a year and a half in the Oval Office with Donald Trump every day.
Yeah.
You expect what out of him this evening?
I expect the greatest hits. What I'd love to see is a major league curveball. You heard, in fact, I hadn't heard the language yet until you played that promo about nice and calm and let him speak. If Donald Trump had done that in the first debate in 2020, he'd probably be the president today. I'd love to see him come out and do exactly the opposite of what everybody expects.
What do you mean?
Calm, quiet, let Biden talk. In fact, I'm one of the people that thinks the more Biden talks, the more he digs a hole for himself. So just let him talk. In fact, you might get on TV and just let Biden talk for an hour and a half. But if he were to do that, think about how off balance Biden would be, because Biden has been up at Camp David prepping. They've been watching the old debates, et cetera. They think they know what to expect tonight. I'd love to see Trump throw a curveball tonight. So here's what's going to happen, but I'd love to see it.
So here's one of the things that's so fascinating about this. None of this is really theoretical or rhetorical, right? Donald Trump has a record. Joe Biden has a record. Both presidents, current and former. Let's look into it for a second. The economy. This is the bright spot for Joe Biden. 15.6 million jobs created. Of course, the caveat with all of this is COVID and jobs that were lost, jobs that came back. Trump lost 2.7 million jobs during his administration, but it was 5.2 million before COVID. Inflation, the other issue, that is a strong point for Donald Trump. Inflation running around 1.9% on average during his presidency, 5.5% for President Biden. Let's look to immigration now. Border encounters, right? Because these are the two big issues, the economy and immigration. We see it time and time again in the polls. 8.1 million under Joe Biden. Under Donald Trump, 1.9 million, and that doesn't even get into the gotaways. And then the third biggest issue, abortion. Voters in 7 states sided with abortion rights or against Republicans in those elections. Since Roe was overturned, Donald Trump nominated Justices Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Coney Barrett. All right, Kurt, that's sort of the tail of the tape there. Where do you expect Joe Biden to go?
I think Joe Biden, the more he spends talking about issues like abortion and women's rights and choice and even democracy on a broader scale, the better it is for him. I think that Mick's kind of onto something, actually. The candidate up there who spends the most time talking, that might be the one who loses this debate.
But I also think, I said this last night and you guys didn't agree with me, I actually think Trump's going to be very controlled, but I actually think the biggest person to watch right now or people to watch is CNN. And there's this whole, in regards to the mute button. And I think that there's this whole conspiracy that people think that they'll mute Trump, but there's now people that think they'll mute Biden when he starts doing his rant.
There's going to be a clock there. So
anyway, I'm just telling you. I just think that, but there is, but not for the second, not for the rebuttal, and then not for the other rebuttal.
Mick and I just talked about this on Vargas, and the thing that I had said was what I think might happen is as the debate goes on, that mute button might just get thrown up because they're going to, whether we like it or not, they're going to talk to each other. And as you said, when you're on that stage, you can hear what the other person is saying. The more that happens, the more they interact, the more CNN's just going to let it go.
Does it unnerve one or the other? Because just because the mic is off doesn't mean they can't hear me. It happens in court all the time. So let me give you my best thoughts. That's not happening, what you hope that Trump is going to do. Trump is going to come out blustery and with hyperbole because that's all he really knows. Biden has got to be a counterpuncher. His response to the hyperbole and the outrageous facts is going to be his own facts.
How do you counterpunch immigration? The numbers are awful for the president.
It may be awful, but he can blame that on the Republicans, and he can say I took executive action recently, and those numbers are coming down. But he's got to counterpunch with facts because that dichotomy will show that Trump is unnerved, and Biden may be older and steady, but that's better than the chaos and corruption of Donald Trump. Real quick, one last point.
Okay, you can have it, and then Mick is dying to jump in.
No, I'm going to agree with him a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but one last point is this. Biden's got to stand up straight. He can't have the gaffes, and he can't, fall or anything. Right. And I say that as a Democrat, he has got to bring it home tonight. Okay, by the way, because 45%... Oh,
I thought you were dying. Yeah, I thought you were dying to jump in.
The majority of Americans right now are picking Trump's chaos and corruption over Biden because of his age. That's incredible.
I want to get to Dr. Ben Carson real quick, but Mick, if immigration is the weak spot for Biden, you know what's coming. Donald, you lost 2.7 million jobs in your administration, 15.6 million jobs in mine. Donald, that is your economy and that is mine. He's going to say what?
I don't think anybody cares.
Okay.
Why not? Because I think this debate is about style. It's about form over substance. Everybody knows what Donald Trump is all about. Everybody knows what policies Joe Biden is all about. They've both been presidents, for goodness sakes, right? If you're not paying attention by now, you're not going to get it. This is about who looks like a president. Trump is 78, Biden is 81. Who is going to look more presidential tonight? What are people going to feel coming out of this? It's not about policies. They already know where the policies are.
All right, let's head on over now to Atlanta, bring in Dr. Ben Carson. He, of course, is the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in the Trump administration. Joining us live from Georgia, Dr. Carson, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Nice to see you, sir. I think we just lost him.
Oh, no.
Just like that. When we get Ben Carson, we'll have... Oh, no, there
he is.
Thanks for being with us here on the Hill, Dr. Carson. You probably heard Mick Mulvaney talking there, your former chief there in the White House. He's been touting you, sir, as the guy that he thinks, if not should be the vice presidential choice, should be viewed as a top contender. And I know you told my colleague Chris Steyerwalt a handful of days or so ago that you have not talked to Donald Trump about the VP pick. Yes. And I wonder, Dr. Carson, if that has changed in the recent days.
And I hear him also.
Dr. Carson, it's Blake Berman. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
I think we lost him when we get Dr. Carson in a little bit, but you've been touting him.
I think he'd be a great pick. I really do. Look, I think the names that Trump has got, we got the folks, all those folks up on the board would be competent, capable vice presidents for Donald Trump. I'm still a huge Ben Carson fan. I've seen him work with President Trump. They work well together. That personal chemistry makes a big difference. I don't care if you're Donald Trump, Joe Biden, you just got to have some chemistry with your vice president for it to be successful.
So that list there, for a little bit of context, Donald Trump said over the weekend that he knows who his vice presidential pick is, and they are going to be with him. Those are the folks who are going to be in Atlanta, Georgia tonight. You got three Republican senators, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, J.D. Vance at the top there, two members of Congress, bottom left, Elise Stefanik, Byron Donalds, the governor from North Dakota, Doug Burgum, and Dr. Ben Carson. When you look at that list, what do you see?
I actually don't know, and we talked about this yesterday as well before we went on air. I don't know if Trump really knows who his vice president pick is. I think that there's still some time that he may know.
Still some runway?
Yeah, I think there's still some runway. And I think that, I have my pick. I think Doug Burgum's a fantastic governor. I think he knows how to run a state. But all of them are good choices.
I think you got to pick someone who actually creates value in the general election. And that's why I think someone like J.D. Vance doesn't do a whole lot for me on that front. Marco Rubio's got the Florida residency issue. When I look at Tim Scott, Ben Carson particularly, I see candidates who can actually help you win the general election. That should be the first and most priority in terms of how you can make this decision.
Which one of those seven, if we revisit January 6th crisis, which one is going to stand up to Donald Trump and save the democracy?
No one on that list is going to.
There.
No one on that list
I didn't say so. I said which one, and not one of them will, and that's what scares me.
Well, who do you think will then?
No one that he would pick.
No one that he would pick. There's no Mike Pence on that list. And what about others who aren't on that list that he may be considering?
I want to ask you, Mick, because you told us a few days ago here on the Hill that you were hearing a whole lot of J.D. Vance. And I know you had your cell phone stuck in a cab for most of the day and you haven't been by it. But over the last few days, are you still hearing a lot of JDV?
It's fascinating because I'd lost my phone today.
Yeah.
I was hanging out in town with a bunch of different folks from the administration. And here's what I found out is that when I was in New York over the weekend, it was J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance.
Okay.
When I was here today, it was all over the board, including Ben Carson. So I wonder what's happening. Just today.
Okay.
I meet with 3 or 4 different former members of the administration, and they were all over the board between Vance and Tim Scott and
right.
Ben Carson. Ben Carson's name came up twice over lunch, as a matter of fact.
Do you really think anyone knows?
No, including Donald Trump. I'm like you. I don't.
You're still
think,
there.
Yeah.
I
think, by the way, I think there's a slight chance he makes an announcement tonight. And
I know. Mick's been saying that.
Yeah.
If something bad happens or if there's a curveball or whatever,
That's
maybe
exactly
it could be
right.
that.
If he thinks the debate is
Steal the
going
show.
badly, he's got a chance to pull this card out and play it because it changes the narrative.
So, Dr. Ben Carson, you saw him there. We're trying to get the audio hooked up. Once we do, Dr. Ben Carson here on the Hill. You're going to want to stay with us for the remainder of this hour and here on NewsNation throughout the night because, of course, it is debate night with Chris Cuomo, Biden, Trump, and then only on NewsNation, RFK Jr. You can join Chris as he sets the stage for the CNN presidential debate simulcast right here on NewsNation. Then RFK Jr. responds in real time with Cuomo. That is one big night, 3 White House contenders right here on NewsNation. But before then, and still to come, here on the Hill over the next 48 minutes or so, we are speaking with both the head of the DNC and the RNC, Jamie Harris and Michael Whatley, here on the Hill live from Atlanta. But first, on the other side of the break, Hot Mic with Mick, what the White House is pushing back on today and what this guy right here makes of it. You're watching the Hill here on NewsNation. All right, welcome back to this special debate edition of The Hill on NewsNation. Time now for Hot Mic with Mick, the former congressman, budget director, White House chief of staff, tells us what he's hearing, what he's thinking.
Where do they find those photographs? Seriously.
Titles exhaust me.
He's got a lot of, he's I think the second person, there's only 2 people with those titles, correct?
Do you know what my formal title is?
Your formal title?
My formal title. I have a formal title.
No. What is it?
Husband?
No. In government.
Oh.
In government. Come on now.
What is it?
It's director.
How so?
Because that's the Senate confirmed position. So it's the highest
so
one.
when people see you in Washington, they say direct? Like,
No, they should, but they don't. You should hear what they call me in this. It's not director.
And away we go with Hot Mic with Mick. All right, Michelle Obama hasn't hit the campaign trail for President Biden, and Axios is now reporting that she is frustrated with the Bidens for freezing out her close friend and Hunter Biden's ex-wife, Kathleen Buell, after the 2 divorced in 2017. The White House spokesperson, Andrew Bates, is denying the tension, saying today, quote, the Biden and Obama families are family to like one another, and whomever made these claims about that relationship isn't familiar with it. What is going on here?
I love this story, and here's why.
Why?
Give me just a second to flesh this out. We get asked all the time on this program, well, you know, if Biden does poorly in the debate, will he drop out and they put somebody else in there? And everybody says, oh, but if they put Michelle Obama at the top of the ticket, she'd walk into the White House. And we all come back and say, no, Michelle Obama doesn't have any interest in this. This story is why. Okay? If you go and look at this story, these are anonymous sources. It's so frustrating on personal matters like this. Listen, we deal with anonymous sources all the time in this town. We do on policy, intrigue inside the White House. But this is a personal issue where that Axios is printing something based upon an anonymous source. It's just the kind of awfulness in Washington, D.C.
You're fired up about this.
That drives decent people away. And every time we talk about the Obamas, what do we hear? They're sick and tired of this place. They enjoy their privacy. They want to be out in the private sector. Michelle's not coming back. And this is Exhibit A as to why.
So is it about Michelle, or because look at the last three, and this comes from the one of the main politics writers at Axios who covers the president. And these are the last three stories before this. Top Dems, Biden has losing strategy. Biden backstory runs darkened by family trauma. And it goes on a third one as well to sort of cast doubt on the president. Is this a whisper campaign among Democrats? Is that what we're seeing here? Because this is drip, drip, drip.
This is somebody with a personal axe to grind.
Okay.
Does anybody really think that Michelle Obama wants Donald Trump to be president?
Right.
Seriously. I mean, that's what this is all about. This is somebody with a personal axe to grind, and Axios is fueling it. And it's very disappointing because ordinarily it's a fairly reputable source in this town, but this is just garbage.
By the way, Mick, that article continues to say she also just hates the politics of it, which is what you were going at.
Right.
Is she's just tired of this game. She doesn't need to be.
You also know what a
better
reporter never does? A reporter never calls someone, a Democratic strategist perhaps, and says, hey, tell me what you think they're doing right. That's never the phone call that we get. It's always, what do you think is going wrong? We heard people don't like this or that. Like, it's never a positive bent on anything.
But the article could also be true on both sides. I mean, Michelle Obama may have those feelings about the Bidens, but I don't think it's going to be detrimental or dispositive whether she's going to campaign for Biden or whether they're close politically. It could be both. Both of those could
when
be true.
When it counts, after the summer, and this might be a question we asked Jamie Harrison, we will see, I'm sure, the full deployment of every talent in the Democratic Party's arsenal to get out the vote and to support the president.
Why hasn't she been out now? And
it's June.
It's June. Okay, but I'm just asking the question. I'm not trying to put something out there.
You do not use someone like Michelle Obama, arguably one of the most, if not the most popular person in the Democratic Party. You don't waste that.
She's coming out.
It gets you nothing.
They are the closers. Okay, that's what they
and a lot
of
this story,
2 weeks.
And a lot of this story is probably coming from the Barack being at the state dinner alone. Barack being in California alone. And so the media, no offense to the media, but the media is looking for angles like that because that's a news story. Now, it may be likely source. Exactly.
You'll see her at the
She'll speak at the convention.
Yeah.
Right. I just think this is a whole bunch of nothing.
All right, meantime, Mick, more tough economic news, I guess you could say, this time from Walgreens, the pharmacy chain announcing the closing of, quote, a significant number of underperforming stores nationwide, end quote. Now, in its quarterly earnings report today, the company cited the, quote, unquote, challenging U.S. retail environment and recent pharmacy industry trends. Now, lower reimbursement rates for prescription drugs have cut into margins. Theft at stores has also been a problem, and add on top of that, of course, inflation. But the company's CEO today also warned that the, quote, current pharmacy model is not sustainable. You see, this is an institution or a legacy company, I guess you could say. Walgreens potentially closing up stores. We're starting to see this one after the next sort of a name
you and I have
we've known
talked
for
about
decades.
this a little bit. We've done this in this segment previously about the sort of the rumblings you're hearing at the bottom of the economy, right? The McDonald's is doing better. Well, McDonald's does better when people are starting to tighten up. And there was a story we did a couple months back about Walmart doing better, but who were they doing better with? They were finding wealthier clients now choosing down to Walmart. Say they leave Target, go to Walmart, or they come out of one of the larger department stores. So there's some weakness here. I don't know if it's going to have an impact on the economy, but certainly it's the kind of stuff that politicians watch. No one wants a Walgreens to close. That doesn't send a really good message. And keep in mind, you close a Walgreens in suburban Detroit, what message does it send to those swing state voters? So it's sort of the story behind the story in American politics. It's what ordinary people see every single day. It's like traffic, okay?
Right.
You drive to school and the traffic is bad, you don't like the politicians. You drive to school and now the Walgreens is closed, that might send a really bad message.
One thing that I do, can I just say one thing?
Right,
I do think that the pharmacy world is changing in general. I mean, I'm sure you've all had emails that Amazon now will deliver to your house and you don't have to go to Walmart. So one of their biggest moneymakers is the retail side of the store. And so if you're not going to pick up your prescription, you're not buying shampoo, you're not buying toothpaste. So you have that. Then you have Mark Cuban, who is also setting up his own company.
Cost Plus Drugs.
Cost Plus Drugs.
We've been trying to get Mark Cuban on this show for quite some time. We'd love him to come on and talk about it.
Do we know anybody?
That is
Do we
taking
know
out the
anybody? Who do we know that knows somebody who knows Mark Cuban?
Go on, Ashley.
Is there?
One of the things we saw some of this about a year ago with Rosalind Brewer leaving Walgreens abruptly over the philosophically what Walgreens was going to be going forward under her leadership. That is, that was Walgreens going to move to a broader healthcare model, or were they going to stay deep into the retail pharmacy model?
Correct.
And these closing of these stores, that may be the result of some of this, but they've got to figure out who they're going to be in the future, and whether it was a year ago when she left, or whether whoever took over is hammering down on staying in the pharmacy business. I think something's got to change.
All right, still to come here from the Hill on NewsNation, our Kelly Meyer live from Atlanta, the head of the Democratic National Committee. Here on the Hill with us as well, Jamie Harrison on the other side of the break. You're watching the Hill on NewsNation. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation, this special debate edition of The Hill. We are less than 3 hours from the first showdown between Donald Trump and President Biden this election cycle. NewsNation's Kelly Meyer is live in Atlanta with the very latest. Kelly, hello.
Hey there, Blake. Yeah, we have both candidates officially here in Atlanta on the ground. The former president, the last to arrive just after 5:30. He landed on Trump Force One, as they call it. There was a crowd of supporters waiting to greet him. We know Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida was also on the plane with him. And then a short time before that, President Biden arrived in Atlanta, reemerging from Camp David as he's been preparing there for the last week or so with his advisors huddling around them, doing those mock debates and getting ready for tonight. He also met with some supporters in Atlanta. Some were holding signs, some oversized pair of aviator signs as well. So those two now hunkering down, getting ready as this debate is getting closer and closer, Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live for us in Atlanta, Georgia. Kelly, thank you. With us live now from Atlanta is the chair of the Democratic National Committee, Jamie Harrison. Jamie, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Your second time back, I believe, and we appreciate your time on certainly what is a huge night for you, your group, and your candidate. So thanks for being here. President Biden tonight, of course, President Biden on stage tonight. What do you want to see out of him as the head of the DNC?
Well, listen, I think the president needs to do three things. The first thing is make sure that he talks about his record of accomplishments and achievements. This is a president that has really accomplished more in 4 years than most presidents accomplish in 4 years. From the American Rescue Plan to the bipartisan infrastructure law. And mind you, Donald Trump talked about infrastructure every week and never filled a damn pothole. But Joe Biden got it done in his first year, the largest infrastructure investment since Dwight Eisenhower. The PACT Act for our veterans, the Inflation Reduction Act, investing in beating back the climate crisis, and also our health care, and so much more. This president has gotten a lot done. So he needs to talk about that record. He needs to talk about his vision for the future and what he wants to get done in the next 4 years. And he has to paint the contrast with Donald Trump, how Trump has been a disaster his entire life. Not only as a president, he was a disaster, how he dealt with COVID and the insurrection, but even as a businessman. And so if he does those three things, Joe Biden will win this debate, and I know he will.
All right, so I hear you there, and you say the president has a story to tell, but let me show you some numbers, Jamie. Three polls leading into this debate looked at the favorability rating of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Here they are, New York Times, Quinnipiac, Gallup. Trump right now, favorable views of each, you can see, is running well ahead of Joe Biden, 6, 9, and 8 points. And then on the other side, the unfavorable views, once again, is running well ahead of President Biden by some 10 points or so, give or take, if not significantly more than that. So, Jamie, the country right now is saying that they view Donald Trump in a more favorable light than they do President Biden. How is that the case, in your view?
Well, I am sure those are probably very similar to the polls that many of you all tried to show me during the midterms that showed that Democrats were going to have be blown out because of this big red wave. And we saw what we had was a bunch of red tears. In the end of the day, the only poll that matters is the one that happens on election day. And Democrats have demonstrated since 2020 that every time we go to the polls, every time the American people get an opportunity to vote on their freedoms and this democracy, it is the Democratic Party that comes out, the party that is fighting for American freedoms, that comes with the victory. And that is going to be the same thing in 2024.
I don't need a poll to explain this, because if you've been to the grocery store, Jamie, you know. If you've been out to dinner or whatever, everyone knows in this country how high prices are. But let me show you, and this really hasn't budged. On the economy, do you feel that the economy is excellent or good? 35% say so. Not so good or poor, 66%. That's basically two-thirds of the country. You know the old adage, Jamie, it's been this way for a few decades. It's the economy, stupid. That's how races are won. And so if we're heading into July 4th here, and two-thirds of the country is saying this economy is not for me, how does the incumbent win?
Because many of the folks, again, you guys spend times on polls. I spend times on the ground. I've gone from Alaska to North Carolina to Florida, and I'm talking to voters in this country who are so grateful for the things that Joe Biden has done in order to improve the quality of their lives. Those folks who are diabetic, who are now paying $35 a month for their insulin instead of the hundreds of dollars that they were paying. I was just with a group of entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs, and many in that group have benefited from the student loan debt relief that the president, Joe Biden, ushered in. Those same people who are telling me that their stock in their 401ks is at the highest level they've ever seen.
And what are they telling you about their grocery bills?
Say again?
What are they telling you about their grocery bills?
Well, we have also seen that inflation and the cost of some of the groceries have gone down in the last few months and will continue to go down. We've also seen that a lot of these people who did not have jobs 4 years ago under Donald Trump, and they now have jobs. And those jobs are paying higher than what they were paying. And so there's a lot of good in terms of the economy. People are doing better relatively. And Joe Biden understands that and understands that there's so much more that needs to be done. And that's why he needs to win. And he needs to get a Democratic House in the United States Senate so that he can work with more things done.
Yeah, let me leave you with this, Jamie, because in 53 days, as you know, is the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, 53 days from now. Nate Silver, Jamie, wrote this about a month ago. He said, quote, "If Biden totally and irrecoverably screws up in the June debate, he's just obviously no longer ready for prime time. Then he can step down and Democrats can pull the Ezra Klein break glass in case of emergency plan and hold a contested convention." Can you tell us tonight, Jamie, that no matter what happens with President Biden's performance, he will be on that stage at the DNC in Chicago?
Nate needs to step away from the bar because that is lunacy. Listen, in the end of the day, Joe Biden is our nominee, and Joe Biden is going to win this election. He's the only person that's beat Donald Trump, and he beat him in 2020, and he's going to beat him again. Folks, stop with all of these conspiracy theories. This is not the West Wing or some weird thing. In the end of the day, Joe Biden, the man who has gotten so much done, he's gotten a lot done for the American people, and he's going to be able to take that track record and continue to get more things done. So, Nate.
Jamie Harrison, we got to leave it there. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, sir. It's a big night for you. And we're going to be talking to your counterpart on the other side of the aisle, Michael Whatley, here coming up later on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Jamie. Hope to see you again. You got it. What'd you hear there?
He's a really good speaker. I think
so that is a good voice for the Democrats, right? The question is, when Joe Biden, which is really the only voice that matters, right? And that's not a dig at Jamie. That's the fact, right? Because he's the standard bearer and the head of the party. Can Joe Biden deliver that message? I mean, I pushed on it. What about groceries, right? you can't really tell people how to feel about their grocery prices. We all know. Is Joe Biden going to try to make the case that prices are coming down? I don't know if that lands. But can Joe Biden make those arguments?
Well, he did with the State of the Union address, and that's a huge stage. And so that's most recently what we've got to deal with. But Joe Biden's been in this business a long time. He's had big moments, and he's answered the call on every big moment. I don't expect a poor performance. I expect a great performance from him. Both performers, both of them may perform very well and stuff. And then what does the American public say? But he's got to look presidential, and he's got to come at this with vigor and counterpunch with those facts to make him look more presidential versus Donald Trump, who's going to come with hyperbole and wild claims and stuff.
There's two things. One, he had a teleprompter during the State of the Union, which he won't have tonight. And two, though, I think the Republicans, we have set the bar so low for him that if he does do well, he is winning.
Well, Donald Trump is a bully, and all he does is bully his way through these debates. We have experience with that, right? So what's gonna change Donald Trump tonight from being the bully that he is?
Because I think he can have some self-control.
But here's the thing.
Hope springs eternal.
That's the key. Like, I think on substance, on the issues, frankly, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump know their messaging on their core issues. That's going to be kind of a wash. I think the distinction in this debate of who wins and who loses is about how they each deal with the personal side of this, the attacks, the aspersions, the temperaments, the way that they like to dig at each other, because they do not like one another, obviously. That's going to tell the story of the debate more than anything.
I'm a big Jamie Harrison fan, and what you just saw right there is why he is the chairman of the Democrat National Committee.
I mean, I pushed him there, right?
You did a great job. He did a great job. South Carolina guy, okay. I beat him 6 times.
What do you mean?
6 times. He ran races against me 6 times. Every
single
single race I ran, Jamie Harrison was on the other side.
I didn't know that.
He's a Democrat operative, but he's a great operative. Okay. I've heard that pitch 6 times, and every single time about me, at least, he was wrong. So I just got a chance to get that in before we go to ads.
Is that a backhanded compliment?
Can you tap yourself on the back?
Yeah, really.
Listen, Jamie is great. We do politics really well in South Carolina, and what you just saw right there is why he is the chairman.
Right. I mean,
it'd be curious to see if are they listening. And I think they would be. Is the campaign listening to that message that Jamie just gave? Because that's the right message for Biden to give tonight.
But is it? Because what happens when President Biden gets pushed, right? And we just had a handful of minutes there with Jamie, and we're grateful for it. But obviously, I would presume this is a much longer discussion tonight. The economy, right? Mm-hmm. When the receipts quite literally get brought on every single food item or you can't say, well, inflation's coming down, Kurt. Like that doesn't play.
The answer is, and I think Joe Biden does this very well, is, hey, you're right. We need to do better. I feel your pain. Things could be better. It is hard. But, oh, by the way, this guy over here wants to give tax breaks to billionaires. Okay. I'm on your side.
Show the favorable and unfavorable. I want your opinion on this, too. Show the favorable and unfavorable graphic. Real quick. Why is that happening?
That's been the case for the last 4 years.
Trump's ticking up, though. I mean, he's only underwater by like 6 or 7.
I could give a crap about the favorable, unfavorable rating because in the midterms, that's the same things that they said.
Exactly.
Favorable is upside down. Republicans are going to get a red wave. It did not happen. No matter what the voters think, whether they like you or not, in a poll like that is not indicative of what's going to happen in November.
There is a bigger issue here, Blake, that you haven't talked about. I'm surprised you didn't ask Jamie about it, right?
I'd take him for 20 minutes, but we can't.
I know. But how does Biden and Trump deal with the mental acuity issue, the age issue?
So,
because to me, that's why those numbers for Biden, he's being judged based on his age and how he walks and talks. How do you get around that and change America's view that you may be too old?
Can I tell? So that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the thing. So if you ask someone like that question, right? You can't change people's views on how they feel about Biden and Trump with the age. It's what it is. Now it is a question and the question that they're going to be asked off the top.
Ashley is absolutely right. This is the key thing going in tonight. This is going to define defeat or victory for Joe Biden. The bar has been set so low.
That was a mistake, though, from Republicans.
I don't know if you can do anything. I don't know if the Republicans did it. I think that, look, when CNN is making fun of Joe Biden, when Nate Silver is calling for replacement, when Ezra Klein is calling for replacement, these are Democrat talking points saying that Joe Biden is not capable to do the job, which they've said now for 6 months. That's lowering the bar.
I disagree with that.
I'm going to give you the last words.
Republicans are the ones who are going out there saying that the only way Joe Biden can get through this debate is if he's on drugs. He should take a drug test. That is lowering expectations for Joe Biden when you do that.
They're under the ceiling, under the floor.
Last word here, Ashley.
No, I just want Mick to say once again that I'm absolutely right.
Yeah, you like that?
Still more from the Hill on NewsNation. Other side of the break, this show on another show recently, and they took a swipe at me and Mick. We'll show you some of it. You're watching the Hill here on NewsNation.
That's why vaccines matter so much. For 40 years, Rotary and partners have delivered vaccines globally. Like here and even here, in your neighborhood and around the world, Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
National Wreaths Across America Day is Saturday, December 14th. You can join in the mission to remember our fallen heroes, honor those who currently serve and their families, and teach younger generations about the value of freedom. A $17 donation to Wreaths Across America sponsors a fresh balsam remembrance wreath. These wreaths have become a symbol of America's respect for those who have served and no longer walk with us. Sponsor a wreath today. Visit wreathsacrossamerica.org.
The Department of Homeland Security is hosting a career expo on June 27th and 28th at the Dulles Expo Center. Visit the TSA booth where they are currently hiring for the Federal Air Marshal Service, transportation security officers, cyber IT and contract positions in the DMV area. Join a mission that matters at the forefront of aviation security and help protect the traveling public. To register, visit jobs.tsa.gov/events.
As you age, you may have questions about finding transportation, healthy meals, or other services around your home and in your community. And the Elder Care Locator has the answers at 1-800-677-1116. Our caring advisors can connect you to trustworthy local experts and the support you need to age well at home. Real people, real assistance, and real connections are just a phone call away with the Elder Care Locator. 1-800-677-1116.
President Biden and Donald Trump will step on the same stage for the first time in 4 years. We just spoke, as you know, with the chair of the Democratic National Committee. With us now on the other side of the aisle, the chair of the Republican National Committee. He is Michael Whatley and joins us live from Atlanta. Michael, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate the time, sir. So I'll start with you where I started with your counterpart. What do you want to see out of President Trump tonight?
I think what we're going to see tonight is him laying out his vision for the next 4 years for America. This is really, truly a debate where we have a clear contrast between the two candidates. We know what we got under President Trump's tenure. We know what we've had under President Biden's tenure. And I think it really is just going to come down to making sure that we're going to have a conversation about the next 4 years, which are really going to set the path for America for the next decade.
You know, we've heard, Michael, from the president, from folks around him, Republican supporters, that the president is senile, the current president, that he is controlled, that he's not with it. But when President Trump did an interview on a podcast in the recent days, this is what he said, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
I'll probably be negotiating with 3 people, but that's okay. I've done that before. I'll be debating 3 people instead of one half of a person.
That's not the correct soundbite, obviously. He was on the All In podcast, Michael, and he said he beat Paul Ryan pretty badly, and I assume he's going to be somebody that will be a worthy debater. The point is, Michael, he is now raising expectations as it relates to President Biden. So what is it? How can you make the case that the guy's not with it, yet you're trying to raise expectations in the hours leading up to the debate?
Look, the discussion that we're having here is not whether he can stand up and talk for 90 minutes straight. It is he has a record that he needs to defend. And during his tenure as the president, he has unleashed inflation on this country, and he has unleashed an immigration invasion that we've seen at the southern border with 10 million illegal immigrants coming across the state. So it is not as important how he says what he's going to say. What's important is what is he going to say, and how is he going to defend his record of failure. And President Trump needs to focus on his record of success and what he's going to do over the next 4 years to get America out of the ditch that Joe Biden has driven it into.
The former president's been beating up the moderators a bit in advance of this, and I wonder if the Biden campaign sort of, you could say, performed the art of the deal by getting Donald Trump to do this with these stipulations, with these conditions.
Yeah, two thoughts on that. First off, the president was very clear that he would debate Joe Biden anywhere, anytime, on any platform. And this is just another promise made, promise kept. And he wants to have this debate. It is so important to show the American people the contrast between these two visions, between these two platforms and these two presidents. The second thing that I will say is CNN has an opportunity here to do right by the American people and play this debate fair. I sincerely hope that Dana and Jake are going to take that opportunity and they're going to play this straight, because otherwise they're going to be doing a tremendous disservice, not just to their viewers, but to the entire country.
The vice presidential selection, Michael, Donald Trump said over the weekend he knows who it is. Do you know who it is?
No, and I think that anybody who tells you that they know who it is or when that announcement is going to come other than President Trump is telling you a story. I feel very confident that we're going to hear about that decision sometime between tomorrow and July 15th when we head to the convention. But that's all we're really going to speculate on.
You know, I asked Jamie Harrison about President Biden's future. So let me ask you this and leave you with this. Donald Trump, July 11th sentencing. Nobody knows what will happen, but incarceration is clearly an option. If Judge Marchand goes down that road, Michael, does the RNC have a plan?
We fully expect that the president is going to be in Milwaukee to accept his nomination on the 18th, and we are going to continue to operate based on that premise. If something were to ever come up, of course, we would have to deal with it, but I'm telling you now, we fully expect him to be in Milwaukee and accept it.
Michael Whatley, the chair of the Republican National Committee. For those watching on NewsNation or listening to us on SiriusXM, this man was in some nasty traffic and got to the camera just in time for us. So, Michael, we appreciate it. Thank you.
He's also
excellent. Thank you, guys.
You got it. You've known him for a long time. Real quick in the last minute here, what around the table, what'd you hear there?
Very briefly, what you just saw there is what he brings to the RNC, and the way that Jamie Harrison brings something to the DNC. What you saw there is what Michael Whatley brings to the RNC. He's an operator. He's a blocking and tackling kind of guy. He's there to make sure they're doing the basics of running the campaign. Very impressive.
You would counter with what?
I thought Whatley did a good job. I think that is nothing like what we're going to hear from Donald Trump tonight, especially when it comes to Biden's mental acuity.
Mm-hmm. I think he did a good job, and I think the most important thing is about the vice president. He was being reasonable. No one knows but Donald Trump.
I saw a grown-up. I was thinking just a grown-up. Makes sense, thoughtful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, can't do anything about his candidate, though, who's got 34 felony counts and been found liable for sexual assault and been found liable for financial fraud. This is the GOP nominee in 2024. 20, 30 years ago, he wouldn't even make it for dog catcher, and now half the country is supporting him.
I suspect some of what you might hear tonight with the debate just a couple hours away. By the way, I talked about a show that we were on. Are you here tomorrow? Are you here tomorrow?
What day is tomorrow?
Friday.
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll play the clip tomorrow here on The Hill, the late night program that Mick Mulvaney was on and The Hill was on. We'll show you that tomorrow. Okay. But before then, and on the other side of the break, Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, joins us here on The Hill. Stay with us. All right, so welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Before we say goodbye, live look right there at the White House, live look at Atlanta, the location of tonight's crucial presidential debate between President Biden and the former president, Donald Trump. Now, one of the things that I'm going to be looking for tonight, do they shake hands? In the first and second presidential debates in 2016, we did see that. Trump and the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton shaking hands. That was the last act of that kind of civility that we have seen on this stage. In the third debate in 2016, the candidates did not shake hands. They didn't shake hands at any point in time. The last presidential debates, as you might remember, occurred during the pandemic. No handshaking, at least at the beginning, you could say, was maybe a reason why. Leland Vittert, host of On Balance.
Buddy,
what's up, my man? There. How you doing? But you know what? This is what we teach our kids when they're 5, right? You say hello, you be respectful, and when it's all over, good game, shake hands.
Yeah, the question, though, is it planned one way or the other?
Right.
And if it is planned, say that they're not going to shake hands, if one of them tries to throw it off and walk over.
I just feel like, and it sounds it might sound just like little or dumb or whatever you think of it, but like they kind of owe the country this. Just like show an act of civility. Do they not?
Well, just because America deserves it doesn't mean America
is going to get it.
There was that line, right, that Americans deserve the government that they elect. So there you go. Well, at least we'll have things to talk about tomorrow.
Yes,
right?
we will, right?